Professor Zhang Gu.
Thank you.
Now, our reporter Omar is in Shenzhen. He's joined by two guests to discuss the city's role in China's development. Hi there, Omar. First, tell us about the reaction there to President Xi's speech this morning.
Well, Mama, obviously for Shenzhen, it's been a milestone day today, marking 40 years since being marked as a special economic zone. I think you guys have been discussing that throughout the evening. You could look at all of the numbers across the board, be it GDP, people's incomes, the amount of investment, not only from China, but from around the world. That's all gone up in those 4 decades of you could say, incredible transformation. Now, obviously today, people tuned into the big event this morning, the Chinese president addressing the nation, speaking about the achievements that Shenzhen has accomplished, that the achievements that the city has made, and also speaking about the future. And it's, you could say, speaking with some of the guests I've been speaking with today, it's been an encouraging sign to hear about the city is still in the sights of the central government, that it's going to be a place that innovation will be happening here. Cutting edge technology is still going to be one of the major focuses here, and more pilot sort of schemes and measures are going to be tested out. Think of Shenzhen, it is the place, it is the sort of part of China that's tested so many of the policies that have led to success. And without taking those risks, I don't think you could see Shenzhen as being such a successful city, especially being home to some of China's companies which have now gone global, like Huawei, ZTE, DJI. They've all made their home here in Shenzhen, and even foreign companies coming here. Global Fortune 500 companies have seen an increase in the amount of them coming here to South China and setting it up as a sort of an establishment, sort of a home for them to expand into other parts of China and, of course, Southeast Asia. You look at Shenzhen right now, also the engine at the core of the Greater Bay Area plan, bringing connectivity between the two SARs, that is Hong Kong and Macau, and other parts of Guangdong province. You can look at Zhuhai, you can look at Dongguan, Guangzhou, all of that stemming from some of the major impacts that Shenzhen has brought forward in terms of the economy and policies attracting business and talents. Now, obviously, 40 years marks a significant point for Shenzhen, but the question now becomes, what is it going forward? What are the benefits going to be implemented here? And I'll just go through a quick list here. Just a few days ago, a policy list was released about the city. Especially you look at foreign investors, when they come to the city, they're looking at that negative list. What are the restricted areas of investment? Some of those expected sort of easing on sectors, you can see energy, telecoms, and transportation. These have for quite some time been restricted areas for foreign investment in China, but to hear that will soon be opening up. Again, we don't know to what extent. Are we looking at foreign investors having to partner with local companies? Will there be wholly foreign-owned enterprises? But it is a good sign to hear that at least these sectors are more willing to accept investment from around the world. That's one of the points which stuck out. Foreign investment across the board, you often hear Shenzhen trying to attract foreign banks, financial institutions to get involved in the Chinese economy. That is also set to be, perhaps you could say, tested or even eased when it comes to investors coming into Shenzhen. That includes finance and the shipping industry. Again, we're in the southern part of China. This is Guangdong province. If you're not talking about import-export, then I think you're missing the point about what this city and what this province can deliver. And another point that stuck out is that high talent attractiveness of the city, and that also includes foreign talents. It's expected that some of the procedures and the sort of policies for attracting foreign talents from around the world, that is going to be eased. Now, Shenzhen didn't get here in such a quick time. Obviously, it took 4 decades, 40 years, and behind that came the concept of Shenzhen speed and the resilience that this city has. My colleague Zhao Yunfei took a look at one of the first skyscrapers being built here and the people's stories who were involved in the construction of the Guomao Tower. Take a look.
Shenzhen's Guomao Building contains special memories for many, including Wang Shungao and his family. Wang came to Shenzhen 4 decades ago to participate in the construction of the building. Then he decided to stay. Witnessing how the city has developed, Wang says he's proud of his contribution.
When we were building Guomao, the only high-rise was a mall near us. As we went taller than the mall, we got excited. Then we made it even taller, and we could see Hong Kong behind the mountains.
With a height of 160 meters, Guomao was built in just 3 years from 1983 to 1985, a speed that seemed impossible. Hardship were expected, but Wang says he had not only given his toil and sweat, but also received love. He met his wife Du Xianfang, another construction worker on the site. Going through archive photos, memories came back. According to the couple, the biggest motivation of workers back then was to help their country get on the fast track of development.
We simply thought that this was a project that carried the hopes of people around the country. We felt that we could do it well, do it fast, and be worthy of their trust.
The couple's dream continues as their daughter Wang Qianqian chose the same industry. But she says it's not easy to surpass her parents.
The society is developing fast. I want to do a better job, and I feel a lot of pressure.
Compared with the old days, the construction facilities are far more advanced. Wang Qianqian says the story of Guomao Building is still their spiritual guide.
Shenzhen Guomao was once the tallest skyscraper in China. That's no longer the case today, but the high-rise still represents the spirit of Shenzhen's ambition and the speed of development. It encourages the young generation here to carry on the city's legacy. Zhao Yunfei, CGTN, Shenzhen, Guangdong Province.
So obviously an incredible story. There are those people, that family who came and had a hand in constructing one of the most historic buildings here in Shenzhen, is continuing that legacy. Their children are staying here and they're following the footsteps of their parents. That's a story by my colleague Zhao Yunfei. Now, for more on today's celebration, I am joined by quite the distinguished guest, Mr. Lu Jianxin. He has a history also in the field of construction. He spent time building up what modern-day Shenzhen looks like today. And earlier today, he was at the major ceremony here in Shenzhen celebrating those 40 years of special economic zone status. For our viewers, I will be doing this interview in Chinese and we'll have some translation for you folks at home so you'll be able to get a bit of an understanding of what we're discussing. So,
Mr. Lu, it's my pleasure to have you in this interview. So you have attended this very important ceremony today, celebrating the 40th anniversary of the establishment of Shenzhen Special Economic Zone. So how do you feel about today's ceremony? Well, this morning I attended this ceremony on behalf of millions of construction workers and I delivered a report. I feel very honored personally to attend such an important occasion, and we listened to the important remarks delivered by our President Xi Jinping. And the remarks continued for 1 hour, and he started his speech with the reform and opening up in China, and he said the reform and opening up will never stop in China. And as part of the construction industry, I feel deeply about the reform and opening up process in China. In 1982, I moved from Hubei province to Shenzhen. And the first construction project I took over is the Guomao Tower in Shenzhen, and it's the first high-rise tower in China. And we adopted a special technology that was for the first time adopted in China. The project failed for 3 times due to the technology. But after trials and errors, we completed the project. Well, personally, I know to cope with such a high speed of construction, we learned from the UK's elevator technology and also the crane tower technology of France. We imported these technologies through the foreign exchange. Without the reform and opening up process, we can never achieve such technology. Well, from 1984 to 1986, we completed the Shenzhen Development Center, the first high-rise steel structure in China, and the technology came from Japan. And I think that was achieved also due to reform and opening up. So this is how deeply I feel about the reform and opening up process in China. So it's very nice to hear these remarks from you. You know, Shenzhen has been a role model city in China in terms of reform and opening up. How do you translate the Shenzhen spirit? Well, Shenzhen is open and tolerant. Many people like me came to Shenzhen when we were still young, came to Shenzhen 38 years ago. And through our own efforts in the city, we have been well established. And Shenzhen is a highly innovative city. I mentioned the Guomao Tower was completed within only 3 days. And in 1994, the Emperor Tower was completed in almost 2 days. It took 2 days to complete one floor for the Emperor Tower. So the Shenzhen speed was achieved through our own hands, but not far from that. It must be completed through technology, and behind that, it's innovation that makes it possible. So from your remarks, I can learn that Shenzhen holds a bright future.
Everyone was able to get a bit of the translation from my wonderful conversation here with Liu Ke. Now, obviously, another part of Shenzhen, another part of the city, yes, it is the speed, it is the construction, and the ecosystem that's been created here for innovation and entrepreneurship, but there's also a history of hardware, of an open source economy when it comes to the products we use in our daily lives to this very day. And just a couple of weeks ago, I got to explore, the hardware capital of the world, which is a little part here in Shenzhen known as Huawei Bay. Here's what I found. Take a look. So we're here in a part of Shenzhen known as Huawei Bay, and for anyone working in the tech industry and hardware, they'll know that this Huawei Bay area of Shenzhen is a hardware capital of the world. Any parts, any circuits, any sort of pieces that go into your phone, that can all be found here, be it broken, be it secondhand used, or you need it to get repaired, you can come here to Huawei Bay and have that. But as you can see around me, there are those name brand shops from Lenovo to Dell to Microsoft. That's all available here as well. But as you venture deeper into some of these markets, you'll find those smaller sort of stalls where literally anything can be customized, anything can be tailored to what you exactly need, and then can be moved on to another part of Huawei Bay and can be assembled. So everything from hardware to technology to putting anything together can be done right here in the heart of Shenzhen.
这个是3D 视频显微镜用于这个手机检修电路板的检测呀这些，然后可以放大缩小，也可以测量。
So people obviously come here, they make a living, they're here to sell products and do business, but it's also a place they spend so much time here. You can see this guy right here. Got to catch up with him earlier today. He's from Zhejiang province, enjoying live NBA action. Audio technician quickly bought some. 你买了什么东西啊？
买了这个小转接头。
I think tiny little antennas that he was able to buy just within a few minutes of coming in. I was able to locate them and make a purchase. Look how easy and convenient that is. Coming to this part of the city is a tech consumer's paradise, but it's also providing opportunities to those looking for something beyond a job in wholesale by branching out into their own ventures. Take Liu Ke as an example, who spent considerable time in Huawei Bay.
I came here in 2013 looking to bridge R&D together with application. I worked in Huawei Bay for 3 years with more than 100 types of chips and was able to put them into production. Once produced elsewhere, we were able to come back here and sell them on the market. You could say that everything a consumer needs can be found here.
The electronics and hardware market has also seen considerable changes. It's helped propel many companies to success, but has also gone through the process of shedding products known as shanzhai, copied or counterfeit goods.
Huaqiang Bay has accomplished a lot historically. It's become a distribution center for buying and selling. I think more than 80% of enterprises in Nanshan district have sort of hatched from Huaqiang Bay. It's contributed to Shenzhen's reform and opening up. In the future, I think Shanghai will face more transformations and all of Huaqiang Bay will introduce more systems for innovation and development.
Meanwhile, some of Shenzhen's and the world's biggest IT companies, including Alibaba, have also recognized Huaqiang Bay as being essential to their business and clients.
Huaqiang Bay has always been the #1 electronic street in China, probably the #1 in the world as well. 90% of the transactions involving electronic products happen in Huaqiang Bay, so pretty much all digital brands and manufacturers can find their products in Huaqiang Bay. Alibaba relies heavily on the innovation and capabilities of Shenzhen.
As China works to strengthen its intellectual property rights and stamp out copycat products, the future of Huaqiang Bay, at least from that regard, is unclear. But for anyone still looking to find a place that's fostered innovation and a sense of open source technology, the heart of Shenzhen is still a source of inspiration. Omar Khan, CGTN, Shenzhen. So I encourage anyone visiting Shenzhen, even if you're not involved in hardware or in electronics or chips, to visit Huaqiang Bay. You get a real feel for some of the people who come here to try and find success, and that's been kind of the backbone, the trailblazing spirit of when it comes to the technology field here in Shenzhen. Now, for more on the tech scene, on innovation happening here in Shenzhen, I'm joined by Mr. Liu Ke, the Dean of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the Southern University of Science and Technology. I hope I got that title right. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah.
Huaqiang Bay, like I mentioned right there, we just saw some pieces of that part of Shenzhen. That's just one part of this city that defines the technology that is an innovation and entrepreneurship that is happening. 40 years of that has gone by us. What do you see currently happening in Shenzhen when it comes to the latest technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship?
Well, as you know, like Shenzhen now really becomes the innovation center of China. We call it the Silicon Valley of China. One side, the government put a lot of research funding. The Shenzhen Municipal Bureau of Research and Science and Innovation, they put like billions into the research, RMB in research. In addition to that, many companies in Shenzhen, for example, Huawei put over 100 billion RMB in research funding. That's really among the top list of all the corporations in the whole world. So we put a lot of resource there, number one. Number two, Shenzhen attracted a lot of top talents. They have a lot of different policies try to attract people like me, come to live in this city, right? For example, in South Tech, the Southern University of Science and Technology, we only a university with 10-year history. But now we have two index on number one. Number one, in terms of the paper published in the world-class journals per professor, per capita, is number one in China. And also the paper published which are the citation index, are also number one in China. Why can do this in 10 years? So the whole Nature Index we listed among the 18 in all the university in China. How we can do this in less 10 years? Because we have policy to attract all the top talents. Most of the professors, like 500 professors in our university, they have been professors in Europe, US, Australia, Hong Kong, all over the world. So in recent 10 years, they gradually come to Shenzhen, they start building their lab, they're starting their own group, doing a lot of the world-leading research because you have the talents there. Again, like people define organization. When you have the top talents, you're going to have good research. And number three, I think Shenzhen has a spirit of entrepreneurship. And the innovation is really the key word, because like research is basically you create knowledge, right? There's no IP there. But what's innovation? My definition of innovation is turning knowledge into technology. So that's the key part of Shenzhen. So Shenzhen, the basic research, we're catching up because we don't have that many universities. We don't have the top research institutes for the last 40 years. But now we're building, we're catching up. But the innovation part, I think Shenzhen doing the best because you have so many entrepreneurs. They come here, they know where the technology needs. So they do a lot of work turning the knowledge into technology. So you have all the companies like Huawei, Tencent, TCL there. And we actually, university also have close relationship with them. Number one, we educate students, grow the students to them. And number two, we have a lot of joint research projects with them. And number three, they themselves, right, there's not many industries doing research like the multinationals in US does, if you look at like 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago. But now, if you look at the research funding, all those big companies put, as well as those new entrepreneurs they put significant percentage of the revenue into R&D. With that, I think definitely it has been the innovation center of China. It will be, and it will be even grow much stronger and much bigger.
And I think, just to go off what you said, you look at companies like Huawei and ZTE, even the entire city of Shenzhen, they have some of the highest number of IP filings in the world.
Yes.
Professor Liu Ke, thank you very much, and you'll be joining us later for our social media live stream. So anyone who's still watching, join us on our new media platforms. Meng, that's it for us from Shenzhen. Back to you in Beijing.
Well, thanks so much, Omar Khan, for us from Shenzhen. And that will do it for our special coverage of the 40th anniversary of China's first special economic zone. And coming up next on China 24. China and Singapore agree to expand relations and support multilateralism. Plus, China considers lowering criminal liability.
Well, welcome to the CGTN live stream. My name is Omar Khan, and we are here in Shenzhen covering the 40th anniversary of being established as a special economic zone. That's been our coverage throughout the day. That's all we've been kind of focusing on, looking at the past achievements of the city here in South China and what's next for the city. So for viewers watching on our various platforms, be it Weibo, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or the CGTN app, be sure to check out our previous coverage earlier today. Leave your comments on whatever platform you're watching on, and we'll get back to you in due time as we continue with our discussion tonight. Now, I'm flanked by two fantastic guests. Quick introductions are first, Mr. Liu Ke, the Dean of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the Southern University of Science and Technology. Thank you very much for joining us. And Francine Hadjisotiriou, got to get that right, the General Manager of the European Union Chamber of Commerce to South China Chapter. Thank you to you both for joining us for this discussion about Shenzhen. I know it's been going on all day, but we have a bit more to discuss. I just want to start off, for viewers who didn't catch us earlier today, I'll start off with you, Mr. Liu Ke.
Yeah.
What is your overall view of the, I guess you could say, the achievements, the progress Shenzhen has made in 4 decades of celebrating 40 years of being a special economic zone?
Yeah. Well, I think this well known to everybody, right? It's from a small fish village to today maybe the most exciting and most energetic city and innovative city,
right.
Not only in China, I think really look at the whole world. It's also very young, right? The average age is like 28. So you can,
makes me feel old when you say that.
Well, makes me feel even older. Yeah. So I think it's really amazing change. But I always thinking how it can happen such change in
4 decades.
In 4 decades. I think 2 things, right? Number one, like there's many special zoo opening in a similar area. Why Shenzhen is the only one so successful? I think the 2 major reasons. Number one, of course, like location-wise, it's next to Hong Kong. Number 2, you have all the people come to Shenzhen.
Right.
I give the comparison. Looks like for the original people come to Shenzhen more or less like those people who from Europe to US in 100 years ago. They have the same entrepreneurship spirit, because when you get on the ship, you don't know what's the future, but you have the courage, right? You have the spirit.
There's no fear of failure. Sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's, if you look at the gene of all the people come from all over China, right, back to that time. They have some dream, they want to change, but they don't know what's the future. But under that situation, they still come here bravely. So you can see the genetic part of people. But you have other special zoo, but they're mainly local people, like Ningbo is Ningbo people,
right.
Xiamen is most Xiamen people, but Shenzhen.
There's something different about Shenzhen.
No matter you come here, you become Shenzhener.
I do want to jump in.
Yeah.
Francine, you've made your way to Shenzhen. We're talking about people coming down to this city, be it from other parts of mainland China, but you've come from afar, a bit further than other parts of China. Obviously, none of us have been here for 40 years, but we can look back, we can read about, we can learn about. What are some of, what kind of stands out to you as this city? It is really special, no pun intended with special economic zone, but it is a special city. It does stand out. What kind of catches your eye on that?
So indeed, I didn't come 40 years ago, only 14 years ago.
14?
In 2006, Shenzhen was very different at that time.
I can imagine.
And we have seen the changes over the years, so I have witnessed myself, like many other people, all the changes. So what is striking for Shenzhen, as you mentioned, is the DNA of the city. People come here to work. They are dynamic, they have hopes also. They come to work, and then they also build their family, right? So that's what makes the city interesting and dynamic, and also interesting for companies investing here, because people come here to succeed. They come here also to learn. And when you have a team in Shenzhen, you can see that they are all very,
perhaps
eager,
motivated,
eager to learn and eager to try and to do better. So this is really a very interesting aspect of
that's often connected to that Shenzhen spirit title that you refer to. Go ahead.
There's another point I want to add, right? Because I recall like 20 years ago, when a lot of multinational, when I was in General Electric, we tried to pick where's our headquarters in China. Most Shanghai at that time, they just give a lot of good conditions. So a lot of multinationals put their headquarters in Shanghai. And Beijing, you have all the state-owned enterprise there. Shenzhen, State-owned cannot come. Multinationals say that time Shenzhen still.
Why go to Shenzhen?
Yeah. So why go to Shenzhen? So now, who comes here? All the entrepreneurs of China, like Huawei, Tencent, TCL. Sure. So also, I think back that time, it's far from Beijing. So you just basically, the Deng Xiaoping said, do whatever you guys like, as long as you can give the speed, as long as you can develop. So the whole innovation spirit, entrepreneurship spirit, and hardship working of the Chinese people are demoed here. Right? It's not based on multinational, not based on SOEs. You have a lot of the private owned sectors, like Huawei, Tencent, TCL, Dajiang. I think that's the creativity. Right? If that time a lot of multinational come here, or a lot of SOE come here, maybe different picture. So it's
today would be a different Shenzhen, perhaps.
Well, I think I'm thinking this way, right? Because that time when we were asked where we should put our headquarters in China,
Shenzhen back then.
Of course, the good part is close to Hong Kong, right? But I think if that time some multinational put here, they may have different results in China. Right. It's just like very, very interesting if you look back to history.
I do want to, of course, we're talking about what attracts people to Shenzhen, what's made Shenzhen what it is today. But I do want to kind of roll it back to what we heard earlier today and what today's actually all about. It's celebrating what Shenzhen has achieved. Now, we did hear Chinese President Xi Jinping discussing those achievements, and there was some policy released earlier this week, just a few days ago, about some of the changes, some of the expectations that you can have for Shenzhen. Francine, for you, was there anything, I know we discussed this off camera, we were discussing this earlier, investment in certain sectors, that is something what stood out to you?
We know that there is a revision of the negative list, which is announced also in today's speech of President Xi Jinping, to ease on certain sectors. So it's positive, obviously. It's good. But it's not enough. The fact that there is a negative list is anyway a proof that it's not the same for foreign and Chinese enterprises. So, but this negative list being revised is a good and welcomed action, and toward the opening of the country, right. Especially of this area. Now, what needs to be done is certainly to have also further reforms, deeper and systematic administrative reform to make it really a complete improvement. And lastly, we can say that the enterprise that are here are continue to invest, continue to thrive here. However, it's still mentioned that the market access remain an issue. Among the companies that have responded to a survey we have conducted recently, this year, the European Business Confidence Survey of the European Chamber, 38% of the respondents said that market access remain an issue. So a lot more could be done, and if European companies would have full access to the market and will bring a lot of added value, even more, to the city and to the region.
So those are kind of your takes on what should be done to even further the old kind of, you could say, the success that Shenzhen has already achieved for yourself, not specific just to your industry, but from an overall economic standpoint. In your view, what more can Shenzhen do? I know it seems in your view Shenzhen has already accomplished a lot in 40 years. That's such a short time period. Is there, and Xi Jinping mentioned other metropolitan cities in other countries perhaps would take 100 years to reach the level of what Shenzhen has. There has to be something that the city can do better, no? There has to be something.
Yes. I think the two things right now. Number one limit Shenzhen is the land. So I think, I hope this is starting of the central government going to give more land to Shenzhen. Like you could probably merge some other neighboring cities.
Sorry, I do want to ask, is that more for a commercial usage or for residential?
Both.
For both.
Both,
okay.
because if you don't have enough land, your home price become like ridiculous, I would say this way, right? Then living cost so high, you're going to basically limiting more young people come to here, talents come to here. So I think that one Shenzhen has to solve that problem. I believe there's plans going to be, I already see some hint sign releasing that. And second thing, I think based on the Chinese system, I think really I wish this is beginning of the sooner the better Shenzhen become the municipality that directly under the central government.
Okay, that's a bold wish.
Where I think it can right now, because if you have Tianjin, if you look at GDP of Tianjin, Chongqing, you have, of course Beijing, Shanghai, there's no argument, right? You have Tianjin, you have Chongqing, Shenzhen.
Why not Shenzhen?
Shenzhen could play a much bigger role, right?
If it was designated as that.
Exactly, because now you give the Shenzhen really that level, because once you become that level, the party secretary become the into the political bureau.
Maybe
right?
things are a bit easier.
So now you can coordinate, right? Then give you the neighboring like Dongguan, Huizhou, just give more land, right? Then let you, because this way you not limit the innovation spread, the innovation and entrepreneurship. I think that's really the two key words of the city, right? You can have more people have that kind of entrepreneurship spirit come to Shenzhen to do business, because now look. Even Huawei think this place too expensive. They moved to Dongguan. How the other
they moved to Songshan Lake.
Songshan Lake,
yeah,
right?
They did.
How the other new starter can sustain, but the high cost.
I do want to say I think that is something we discussed in our earlier live stream this morning with two other guests. I do think Shenzhen. I don't know if you two can kind of add to this. Urbanization. It comes with its good and its bad, right? You have all these people from other parts of China and abroad flooding to the city, all young people. Of course, that's going to result in a place or an issue or a reality. Where do people live? Is it affordable? Are you able to retain people to stay in the city? Urbanization does come with its pros and its cons. Yes. And I think Shenzhen is an example of that, where there was urban development mentioned today as we listened to the speech, and finding a fair and more equality when it comes to people's livelihood. So I suppose when you talk about expanding land, that residential aspect is going to become important, because you don't want ridiculous housing prices.
Yes.
That's something important. Now, I do want to kind of get something specific from your backgrounds. You obviously work with European companies across South China. You're working in tech innovation. I believe you're going to focus on green tech, environmental protection. Francine, I will start with you. You did briefly mention that survey, that business confidence survey, but overall, you said 14 years, I believe. I guess I would say that you probably have an understanding of European companies operating across China, in Shenzhen and here in South China. Two parts: what brings the companies here and what keeps the companies here? And I guess you could also include what makes companies leave as well.
Yes. So we could give advice on companies on where to invest, and all depends very much on the industry they are in. Shenzhen is very strong in the innovative manufacturing. The Shenzhen, the city, is really the place for hardware. There are plenty of incubators, and this is what makes the Shenzhen ecosystem. Incubators are not only in Shenzhen, there are also plenty in Beijing, but they are focused more on software, while Shenzhen is more on hardware. Yeah. So it's totally different type of companies where prototypes can be built very quickly, and that proves also why the companies that were already in the city or came and added investment in the city of Shenzhen also developed their R&D centers here, because really the ecosystem is there. Talking about talent, so we have also young engineers that are a precious resource for these R&D centers, for these companies having these R&D centers, and this is certainly where the human resource aspect had to be worked on. It was mentioned today, this morning, by President Xi Jinping about the human aspect and the talent, how to attract the talent. So it's especially for the very high-level talent.
The cream of the crop, at the top.
And they are, let's say,
I don't know if I'd make it. I don't know if I'd make it in Shenzhen.
Good measures to attract them, which is good. However, also the innovative companies in Shenzhen and in the region, because I could speak also for Guangdong, need more, not only the scientific people, but also technicians,
right.
very good technicians, engineers that are more at a middle range level, but that are also very skilled. And these people will be trained and will be more useful to the companies with good vocational training. So
Correct.
vocational training exists. However, it's too small, and there are some vocational trainings that could be developed further, exploited further, and be more efficient.
Just to clarify, this is something European companies would like to see more improvements in. Okay.
Exactly.
And for those who have found difficulties, I can't believe someone would say there are difficulties in Shenzhen, but have you experienced companies saying maybe it wasn't a correct fit, maybe it wasn't a right fit to Shenzhen? Have you heard anything?
Well, from the companies, European companies here in South China, we have surveyed them, and 83% of them said that if they would have to invest now, they would choose to do it. So it's a large majority. Large majority. It means that they don't regret their choice. They will do it again. And we know that among these companies, they are even investing further. So we can see that they are committed to the region, and this is very positive.
Fantastic. Okay, I guess that's good news for the city of Shenzhen receiving European investment. That's always good. To kind of flip it to your background, to your sort of expertise. I've been in Shenzhen multiple times. I actually have focused quite a bit on green protection, environmental protection. You look along the bay across from Hong Kong, you have no high rises on the water. And from my understanding, that's a policy by urban planners to create those mangrove buffer zones between wetland and dry land to ensure the environment is protected. You have sort of grass bridges in Shenzhen over certain highways, allowing the nature and wildlife to persist. And also green tech. That's not only a Shenzhen thing, that's actually a China sort of approach. We've heard of commitments from China just recently on the global stage. What do you think of Shenzhen in that sort of realm, in that sphere of being not only innovative, but also green and environmentally friendly?
I think Shenzhen put a huge effort try to control its the air pollution, the water pollution, as well as of course, this area naturally is more greener than Beijing, but they still put a lot of effort on city planning. You can see a lot of parks, a lot of green land. I guess especially when you have very limited land, right? You would rather just build building taller instead of put buildings everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So they still try to keep all the green land, all the parks for the people. Also, there's a lot of mountains. They build the tracks for people to go to climb. I think that's all important. And also, you see, many years ago, Shenzhen basically turning all its taxis into electric vehicle.
Right.
Because buses as well. Because BYD, right?
Because BYD.
Yeah, well, BYD was here, and also I think Shenzhen takes the lead of quite many of the new energy development sector. Because overall, in whole China, people put a lot of effort to try to solve the smog issues in the last 10 years. So you do see the improvement in Beijing. I was in Beijing last couple of years, right? Because actually one of the reason I moved from Beijing to Shenzhen back 2015 in the winter, that was terrible.
It's difficult.
But now it's much better.
It is. I have to admit, it is. It has.
So I think the whole country put a huge effort, right, to put the environmental regulations there. Also, especially the law enforcement. You have the environmental regulation before, but
actually, I think that's something common we see in China. You have the law, but then the question comes down to when is it being enforced, when is it not being enforced. I know you wanted to add to this conversation of Shenzhen being a green sort of tech city.
Yes, and we heard in the speech as well as in the document released before that there is an emphasis on the ecological development, ecological growth, which is a good thing. I would say that we all know the planet has about 10 years to control the rise of the temperature. We know that the biodiversity is shrinking, so it is a really urgent necessity for all countries all over the world to put in place measures drastic measures to rethink the way companies are producing. And Europe has launched an initiative called the Green Deal Initiative, which is focused on circular economy. And this is an area where European and China could cooperate further. And a lot of European companies have fantastic technologies. So the knowledge, the technology exists, the companies are there, so we need to give them a push to help
get it going,
these companies, not only Europeans, but I would say all companies that have solutions to implement positive and sustainable solutions.
At this part, actually, like when I was the vice president of the Topsoe, the headquarters in Copenhagen, so I went there. So I visited Europe a lot. I think one thing China should learn, right? If you look at a lot of cities in China, in Europe, you have people ride bikes all over the place. I think that
outdoor
good habit
culture
should be still kept in China, because China cannot turn everybody driving. That's I think from that sector, I think we still, if you look at it like in Amsterdam, Copenhagen, you see on the subway, you have people basically, even the premier of Denmark ride bike to work. Right, you see like the also premier of British, right? There, I think China should learn. But the important thing is like also if you look at because I actually came back to China, helped China build the National Institute of Clean and Low Carbon Energy. So I do see the changes of the clean energy part in last 10 years. China now become the biggest solar power and the biggest wind power produced in the whole world. It's amazing, right? Nobody even 10 years can think how low you can drop the cost of the solar energy so low. Today, actually, solar energy can compete with the coal power. The only thing is not stable because you only have so many hours of sun. But even 10 years ago, I myself never imagined that happen. So that's really the technology as well as the whole industry ecology drive the cost of the solar energy. It's really.
And you even look at places like Zhuhai using wind farms and using wind energy. That's a major driver here in Guangdong. So that's another.
Well, now I think we are trying developing a lot of the offshore.
That's what. That's what I meant to say. Offshore wind being a source of energy. I remember we actually CGTN. We actually went down to cover that. Now, so we've kind of covered a wide range of topics here. I do want to, as we finish off our conversation. Shenzhen is highly linked to the Greater Bay Area. And for those watching at home, Greater Bay Area is sort of I guess you could say a master plan to further integrate every part of South China, including the two SARs, Macau and Hong Kong, with the province of Guangdong and every city inside that. Some people say Shenzhen is the engine of the Greater Bay Area. Some will say it's sort of a collective effort of cities like Guangzhou, Dongguan, Huizhou, Zhuhai, and Shenzhen, and of course, Hong Kong and Macau. I'll start with you, Professor Liu Ke. When you think of the Greater Bay Area, is Shenzhen the first thing that comes to mind? Or what is its role in this sort of overall plan here in South China? How do you see Shenzhen contributing to the Greater Bay Area?
Well, I think at this stage, if you look at the innovation, look at the dynamics at Shenzhen, also because the location is so close to Hong Kong, so it's really Shenzhen become the leading city of this Great Bay Area. And also more important, if you look at the sector, for example, right, the sector I'm working here, and also the electric sectors there. If you put Shenzhen in a circle, within these 2 hours, you can actually get anything you want. Because now a lot of industrial designers actually live in Shenzhen. Because if they have design, this is the facility you can become prototype. Then you have prototype, you ship a few containers. You ship a few containers to do the marketing test. If it's good, within 1 month you have a shipment of goods go to all over the world. So that's not only because of Shenzhen itself, but because the whole area, you have the whole industrial ecosystem.
You don't have to leave.
Yeah, and also another part, just go back to, I want to add, is like if you look at Shenzhen is a coastal city. It's a port city, because if you look at a lot of leading, like the good cities in the world are the port cities. Actually, a lot of the pollution is from the ship oil. So, because now people, the simple way is you say, okay, at 20 miles, I use electricity instead of like diesel engine.
Right.
But 20 miles, if the wind blow like outside, offshore, even you don't pull electricity, it doesn't matter. But if the wind blow back to the shore, even you pull with electricity for 20 miles, does not help. So I think there's, for all the cities like Shenzhen, Hong Kong, New York, London, all those port cities, now we work on project, use much cleaner at cheaper. The importance, usually the cleaner means more expensive, but we have cheaper
Unfortunately, that's a reality.
engine. It is. We basically, we use methanol, add water, make hydrogen electricity, drive the ship. It's definitely possible. It's much higher efficiency than the old dirty diesel. And I think this is in the reality. In a few years, you will see those ships.
New trend.
Where then you basically solve not only the pollution of Shenzhen, but solve the pollution of all the ports. Because when you have the port city, not only the ships coming out, but also you have all the trucks, containers coming out. So solve the pollution of the dirty diesel, especially the bunker oil of diesel. That's, I think, the world should collaborate. We have a very good project on that in South Tech.
We will get to that, I'm sure, in due time. A very environmental sort of approach to Shenzhen's role in the Greater Bay Area. Perhaps you have a different angle to approach what the city offers to the rest of Guangdong and the two SARs.
Yeah. Well, as Professor said, each city has a different role within the GBA. It is complementary, and through the various infrastructures that have been put in place over the recent years, it also helped for the flow of goods and people. Shenzhen has its benefits, and each, let's say, Hong Kong will have to work closely even more with Shenzhen. Of course, with the pandemic, it has changed a lot of things, and I would say we all want to put these 20 years a little bit in parentheses regarding the pandemic.
Never happened.
But yes, each place has a certain role. Shenzhen definitely is important for the whole region in the field you mentioned. Hong Kong is trained in services, in finance, financial services especially, that Shenzhen will use and will not be able to do as well as Hong Kong. And vice versa, Hong Kong or other cities within the GBA will not be able to replace the ecosystem of Shenzhen. So it's really each city has its strengths, and the overall region adds benefits. Now, what needs to be emphasized, it's good also to have hard infrastructures and milestone achieved. It's also important that within the GBA there's a smooth and let's say software, meaning that helps the hard infrastructure to be working. Example, Shenzhen has several ports that rank number 3 in China, number 4 internationally. Fantastic. It's good to have big ports, but it has to work smoothly, efficiency in terms of customs.
Smart, yeah.
Exactly. And for the goods moving from Hong Kong to Shenzhen, it's still two systems. So it's important that the system is also consistent,
sure.
And that makes the hard infrastructure working.
That's putting the smart software to make the already well-established hardware work even better. You wanted to
add one part. Speaking of Hong Kong, right? A lot of people in Shenzhen say, we are strong enough, we should replace Hong Kong. It's not. I think Shenzhen and Hong Kong should be tried to always find a win-win situation. It's really complementary, because Hong Kong, you have a 100-year history of internationalization and modernization. A lot of culture, a lot of the people, the running, also the trusting system, the financial system, right? Because a lot of the money, if you look at the last 40 years, a lot of money invested in China is through Hong Kong.
Round tripping.
Right.
Goes out of China,
it's not going through, in the near term, not going through Shenzhen. So I think in this here, I think the best way, Shenzhen benefit from Hong Kong. And now even you GDP is bigger, but do not, I always remind people, do not think you could replace Hong Kong. You are not. The best way is try to find a win-win situation.
Right.
Number one. Number two, if you look at the whole Great Bay Area, compared to New York Bay, Tokyo Bay, what's the difference? In New York Bay, in San Francisco Bay, I live in US for 20 years. I can drive, I can go there, same money, same languages, like you have no customers there. If you want the GDP grow, that problem has to be solved. Otherwise, but you cannot just drive.
Driver's license, passport, ID.
IDs,
yes,
right?
Inconsistencies.
And 3 different currencies, right? I mean, if you look at, I was on this Guomao Bridge, right?
You have to register, and it's a bit of a convoluted
I mean, you spend so many, huge investment, like about 200 billion to build that, but how many cars drive that there?
Okay, sure.
Right, so you have to solve that problem. In fact, before you build a building, you should solve that software problem before you build in hardware.
Entrepreneur mindset.
Yes.
Look, I know we've gone over a variety of topics about Shenzhen. We've gone into details that I didn't know we were going to jump into. I kind of want to give you both a final question, but please, in about 1 or 2 minutes, answer very simple cliche question. Where do you see this city going in the future? What's next for Shenzhen? Are we going to see another sort of 40-year jump of innovation? Hopefully we'll get that smart software that you've been asking for. What do you see for the future of this city? I'll start with you and then finish with you. Yes.
Well, I see that Shenzhen has a very good future, for sure. The hopes that we have is to focus on the points we mentioned earlier regarding a smarter way of having growth, which means more green, more sustainable, not just the words, but to be fast and to be really helping the foreign or any companies, foreign and Chinese companies that have solutions, because it's an urgent matter. In terms of human resources, it's also very key, and it was not mentioned enough, and we would like to hear more about that in today's speech and the measures, the 10 measures put in place for this demonstration zone that was discussed today. So this aspect of talent and more for in terms of engineers, technicians for the innovative manufacturing companies that are the core of Shenzhen industry is essential. So this is very important, and without that, and without the soft added to the hard, it will not be working. So a lot of challenges exist, and but still a positive
good
outcome, good outlook. For the future, definitely.
Is that something you can resonate? Is that a similar outlook of positivity and good things to happen here in Shenzhen?
Yeah, I think there's basically like the part of the reason I moved here is because I think if you look at the growth in the next 40 years in this world, where's the area? I think this is at least definitely one of the areas that's going to continue grow fastest among the world. At least one of them, if it's not the top one.
The top one,
yeah. Right. That's number one. Number two, I think in terms of what Shenzhen need, I think in the last 40 years, it's built a lot of manufacturing base. But now you need innovation. So innovation, what do you need? You need top universities. You need top research institute. So top university, I think Shenzhen already starting put a lot of investment. For example, they put money build Southern University of Science and Technology. Within 10 years, we are now actually already ranked quite high in China. We continue, because if you want to attract those top talents come back here, you have to have this top institute university hosting them.
To educate.
You educate them, and also hosting them. So I think that's, and also, if you want to really become a world-leading university, you got to have world-leading, if you really want to become a world-leading city, you got to have world-leading universities.
That's true.
Right? If you look at this world, right, New York, you have
London, Boston.
London, Boston, San Francisco, even Beijing, you have Beida, Tsinghua.
Sure.
At Shenzhen, we don't have that. So I think we need 2 big universities there. And the second part, I think the most important thing, if I observe is try to build its industrial research capability. Because basic research is important, but the whole world realizes the federal government or the central government invest on the basic research. Because basic research, there's no IP.
That's their job to do.
It's really, if you look at Beijing, it's big, but all the institutes are funded by central governments, not Beijing municipality.
Right.
Shenzhen, because we don't have that, so we have started building this with the funding from Shenzhen municipality. But sooner or later, I think the central government has to involved in that part. But as a city, what you should focus on? Focus on industrial research, because there's different. It's a completely different. Because in the US, right, you have US, if you look at Silicon Valley, you have these top universities, but you have a lot, there's real technology engine in those big multinationals. Boeing, you have like GE, we produce 80% of jet aircraft engines. Right. I also work for ExxonMobil, like all the refining technology of the world, petrochemical technology developed by company, not by university, not by the Chinese Academy of Science.
It's corporate. It's
in-house. Corporate. But I think that part, Huawei already gave a good example for rest companies of China. But if you look at other than Huawei, I don't see any other one near close to those world-leading multinationals.
They're still catching. Sorry, you wanted to jump in.
The key point, I think, is also close cooperation between the education, the research, and the corporate worlds. And this is necessary.
This would enable sort of more of the outlook that you're kind of going home at. Okay, I think we've reached a point in our conversation. I didn't know it was going to go down the shore. We got quite detailed, which I really appreciate. Francine Hadjisotiriou, I think I got that a lot better, the General Manager of the European Union Chamber of Commerce, the South China chapter, and Mr. Liu Ke, the Dean of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at, as you mentioned multiple times, at the Southern University of Science and Technology. Thank you to you both for joining us here on the CGTN live stream. And for those who joined us and stuck with us through this conversation, remember, you can find all of our content at CGTN.com and our multiple social media platforms. That's it for my coverage and our coverage here in Shenzhen on the city's celebration of 40 years of being marked as a special economic zone. Stay tuned to more of our live streams at CGTN.com and, like I said, all of our platforms. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.